Now, usually before, go ahead.
We're out of order in that we haven't set the table yet.
I know, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're entering the portion of the Mass that's now known as the liturgy of the Eucharist. In the early church, all of the Masses were said in Greek. Greek was the official language of the Roman Empire, not Latin. Latin was only spoken in Rome. Over a period of a few hundred years, more and more of the Mass was taken into Latin because it began to spread throughout the empire. Less and less was stated in Greek. But the structure and what was said in Mass was dictated by the local bishop. In the year 430, the Pope said, not going to have this anymore. We're going to a standard language and we're going to a standard structure and prayers. That was the beginning of the Latin Mass, what is today known as the Latin Mass. So if you went to Mass in the year 500 and you went in the year 1950, they looked almost identical. There are a number of things that take place during the Mass whose original purpose is no longer here. But the action was retained anyway in order to keep the structure of the Mass the same. And we'll point out some of these as they take place. Why we're doing something now whose original purpose was entirely different. The very first article that is placed on the altar is called the corporal, which means body. It serves two purposes. It defines what is the Holy of Holies, where the sacrifice is going to take place. This region right here is the Holy of Holies. So anything that is consecrated winds up on here. If it's not on here, it's not consecrated. That's the first purpose. The second is a very practical one. With the breaking of the host, you get little crumbs onto the altar. The purpose of this is to catch those little crumbs, and they're folded up and they're carefully brought into the sacristy. That's why the name corporal or body. This is the altar chalice. So one of the chalices is generally larger than the others and is referred to as the altar chalice. A second chalice. Bowls for washing, and incidentally, I'll explain why the washing in a few minutes.
Keep going, you're on a roll.
On a roll?
Yeah.
Okay. The deacon.
Now this is really important, and you don't pay attention to it because we're busy singing. Okay?
Okay. Here is the first act whose original purpose was entirely different than what I'm now doing. In the early centuries, there was no way of storing wine, and so it was kept as a syrup, a very dense syrup that you couldn't drink. The way you made wine is you took the syrup, you mixed it with water, and that's how you created wine. So the practical fact is, syrup would come forward, and the deacon would have to pour water into it, make it wine. Well, in modern times, that's no longer the case, but they've retained this pouring water into the chalice act. Now it is a commingling. By the mystery of this water and wine, may we come to share in the divinity of Christ as he shared in our humanity. So the symbolism relates to the joining of Christ, not the making of wine. The act is the same, purpose is entirely different.
Now again, remember your offering. The wine is Christ, the water is you. And your offering. The two are mixed, no longer inseparable. That's how important your role is at Mass. Your offering becomes one with Christ's offering. Now my role now, I act in the person, in persona Christi Captis, in the person of Christ the head. So I have in a sense two roles. I act on your behalf as the congregation, but I also act in the person of Christ, who accepts your offering and offers it up to God.